Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this very interesting session, what we call as the In the Spotlight. As part of our firm, Kingsley Gate Partners endeavor to engage with top leaders on areas beyond core competency of executive search. We of late we've felt and we feel that corporate sustainability is assuming an all-important significance as companies start thinking beyond the traditional, if I could use the word, dictate of CSR. We are now moving into areas of ESG, or what we call as environment, society, and governance, or more informally put by most people, we're talking about people, planet, and profits, where companies are walking the talk and creating the right environment and ecosystem as a more accountable corporate citizen down the line. One such company, which we feel is a torchbearer when it comes to carrying the flag of and the torch of sustainability forward, is one of the best known companies in the automotive world, which is the 38 billion euro Continental Group, that is making significant and specific progress towards achieving various sustainability goals, whether related to emission norms, related to diversity, equity, inclusion, or even contributing to human development and total environment protection. Well, to talk more in detail on what the company is aiming to achieve as part of their sustainable goals, we have with us Prashanth Doreswamy, country head, Continental India and Managing Director, Continental Automotive, who, in my opinion, is probably as passionate as anyone could get and is the custodian of the company to help the company achieve their goals with respect to furthering their sustainability agenda. In line, without further ado, Prashanth, welcome to In the Spotlight with Kingsley Gate Partners. Thank you so much for your making time in your busy schedule and talking about your achievements and plans in the all-important area of sustainable development. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Sanjay. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Truly excited to be part of this session, and also thank you so much for having me in this show.
Absolutely, and always a pleasure to speak to. And I won't make any bones of it. Always a pleasure to speak to a co-Bangalorean. I mean, I've been out of Bangalore since the last 30 odd years, and it's always, it also takes me on a nostalgic trip whenever I come across somebody who's in Bangalore and from Bangalore and talking to him or her in great detail. So welcome again.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Prashant, what I would like to do here is that while sustainability has evolved over time, I mean, from the usual earlier, situation of what companies were calling as corporate social responsibility, we moved to ESG, as I said. Now we're talking about sustainability, where I think companies are not only wanting to achieve certain sustainability targets for the sake of a potential regulatory requirement, but also I think these the feeling of wanting to achieve sustainability goals is getting more and more inherent in the company's DNA and structure, and the companies are glad to see that many companies are imbibing the very DNA of sustainability in them. So I could probably talk about sustainability and what you have done till the cows come home, but we all respect your time. And let me kind of start asking you by, mentioning that we all know that the Conference of Parties, COP26 conference is coming up later this year. And we also know that the Paris Agreement has been signed off, and Germany, which is your home country where Continental is from, and India are signatories to it. And then we have a rather stringent target of the Paris Agreement to reduce global temperature, global warming by 2 degrees, but I think they're okay with 1.5 degrees also now. Now, how do you kind of juxtapose your Continental's agenda with in overall COP26 and Paris Agreement guidelines. I want to start with this and then get into specifics of what you've achieved as far as sustainability in Continental is concerned.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Very pertinent question. Before I get into the details of this, I think traditionally you see the manufacturing industry as an image of consuming valuable resources and generating industrial waste. Yeah. Today, most manufacturers recognize and acknowledge their environmental and also social responsibility. So at Continental, we do not see this as a feel-good factor. It is seen as a necessity for the future, I would say. So we consider it as an important factor in sustainability across all levels of the production cycle and also the life cycle of the product as well. So for a better, more sustainable world, we need vision that inspires people and guide them. I think we need range of perspective on how we can make this achieve. Yeah. Bring this vision into reality. And we need solutions as well to help us get a little closer to our goals every single day. Yeah. So the automotive industry and other sectors have initiated, I'm sure you know that, huge transformations in which sustainability plays an even greater role. Yeah. The future of mobility is now firmly linked to the sustainability. Our goal is healthy ecosystem for mobility, also in a comprehensive sense, and has established a sustainability strategy based on 4 focus areas. What are those 4 focus areas if I have to talk about? One is certainly the climate protection. How can we make our plants carbon neutral by 2040? And also, how do we achieve carbon neutral for the complete value chain? That's from raw material to tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, and customers, and also the product life cycle. How do we achieve this by 2050? So this is the first target on the climate production. Second one is on the clean mobility, which we are into actually. So how do we achieve zero emissions on the road and also zero tailpipe emissions? And the third piece is solutions beyond zero tailpipe emissions. And the third piece is what we call circular economy. That's the close, reduce, recycles. Yeah. How can we achieve by 2030 95% of the waste what we produce in our plants gets recycled? So that's the third target. And the fourth is what we call as a sustainable supply chain. When you talk about sustainable settlement, minimizing negative social and environmental impacts in our complete supply chain, and it includes people as well. Yeah. And the traceability and risk-based due diligence. So these are the 4. To summarize, one on the climate protection, second is on the clean mobility, third on circular economy, and the fourth is sustainable supply chain. So having said this Paris Agreement demands, as you rightly said, the global carbon neutrality. So for every country in the world and for every area of life, this aim is to avoid the worst effects of climate change and also to limit the global temperature increase to a maximum of 2 degrees, at best 1.5 degrees. That's what they talked about, right? That's why there is a CO2 budget. Once it's exhausted, the temperature increase can no longer be stopped. Yeah. Therefore, global carbon neutrality must be achieved as long as world is still within this budget. So that's the reason the race for time. So in 2015, when the agreement was concluded, the estimate was beyond 2050. I think in the meantime, the budget will be used up by 2050 at the latest. Yeah, probably much earlier also. That's the reason we see all our goals tied to this particular time frame. So as with budgets in the company, every avoided emission and every neutralization of removing CO2 from the atmosphere, example could be through forests, cones, exactly, it could be anything through. Yeah. So consequently, expenditures must be reduced while income must be created at the same time. Yeah. So this takes companies into responsibility to adopt their process and the products. The product program. So at Continental, if you have to speak specifically, we will achieve this step for our emission-free vehicle business already by 2022, and not only for our own production, but the entire upstream chain to end of the product's life. Incidentally,
Sorry, if I can just interrupt you. I was just coming to that. I mean, you touched upon a very important topic, which you said the four pillars. One of them is climate and emission norms. Continental being one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world in discrete manufacturing, contributing directly to vehicle manufacturing. I mean, I read somewhere that you have 500 plus manufacturing plants around the world.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting to know it. You know, it's and you know, very nice to know that Continental as a company is walking the talk. But if you could detail on how you know, are you planning to reduce emissions? Because at the end of the day, you need to produce because of the demand of vehicles downstream. And I also read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, in the fact that you use about 50 meter cube of water per manufacturing of one vehicle in one car. So one is water conservation, trying to be water negative, if not water neutral. On the other side, reducing greenhouse GHGs, as greenhouse gas emissions, because you are such an intensely manufacturing unit. So any particular areas which you can talk about as examples where you're really trying to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, and then of course, you know, curtailing the depletion of water.
Sure, certainly. So I think the first step we took, that was last year. We said all our 550 plus manufacturing plants by end of 2020 will use only the green power. Even though if you don't produce, but even if it costs more, we will procure renewable source of energy for our production purposes. And that has been achieved. If I have to specifically talk about Continental India, at our Bangalore plant, already we have achieved about 99% of our today's energy, which comes from the renewable sources. Some of them are outside, and some of them are captive through solar. So this is the first step we took, and I would say we really we are grateful to the team for making it happen within a short span of time across all manufacturing facilities. So this is one example if I have to talk about. And the second one, again, if I have to specifically talk about Bangalore plant was an example, we also did achieve a zero water discharge. So whatever we consume water, either be it for domestic purpose or be it for manufacturing purpose, for cooling, whatever it is, we are ensuring that it's a zero discharge plant. So these are the two first steps already what we have achieved in our manufacturing facilities here in India.
It's fantastic to know. I mean, you talked about circular economy, which is again, it's been there in circulation, if you will, pun intended, for a few years in the making. But you talked about one of the areas which, I read somewhere, with particular to Continental and your leadership and intervention, is how do you kind of influence, you know, you talked about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, where scope 1 and 2 are largely relatively under your direct control because it's related to your manufacturing, related to your immediate suppliers, etc. So linking circular economy to scope 3, where you talk about certain types of packaging which are sustainable, how do you achieve down the line through the entire value chain? How do you kind of you know, while Continental is a large company with 38 billion euros, and there is a lot of impetus and focus down the line, but let us say an MSME who's supplying to you packaging material. So he or she is still opening their eyes with regard to how business is to be done in case if there is that's a new supplier. How do you go about influencing people down the line, talking about scope 3 and ensuring that they also start adhering to the agenda of your corporate sustainability goals?
Sure. No, thanks, Sanjay. So as per GGP, you know, scope 3 emissions are all indirect emissions. and not included in scope 2. So that occur in the value chain of the reporting company, including both upstream and the downstream. When you get the parts, raw material, when you ship out the finished goods. Yeah. This means green supply chain. Green supply chain can be defined as integrating environmental thinking into a supply chain management, including the product design, material sourcing, selection, manufacturing process, and also the delivery of final product to the customer as well, and also the end of life management of the product after its useful life. I think the green revolution or the mobility revolution is going to be the change makers in the automotive industry in the upcoming years, I would say. So they will lead to process and will help in the environment of the rural markets, feeder services between the transportation modes, and also demand for mass mobility vehicles requiring realignment of the present day supply chains. So to talk about this, for example, we do ship a lot of millions of parts to our customers on a yearly basis. So for us, it's very important, how do we ensure that we don't use single-use plastic or as expandable packaging? So we have converted, one such this thing is, we have converted every of our shipment into a durable packaging so that we can recycle the packaging several times and we don't create additional waste in the environment system.
Fantastic. That's good to know. Slightly deviating, of course, we're talking about circular economy, we're talking about emission norms, greenhouse gases, etc. But very intrinsic to sustainability goals is something also which is also inclusive growth. Inclusive growth by including people from various diversity avenues. One such diversity is gender diversity. Of course, diversity does not mean only gender, it means a lot of other areas of bringing people and making it an all-inclusive workforce inside a company. But the manufacturing industry per se has always been, fortunately or unfortunately, been at the it's faced heat that it's not kind of being welcoming to women. You hardly see women in the shop floor of manufacturing companies, though I must admit that it's changing now. It's changing. We see many an automotive company. We saw two of the OEMs. We talk about a couple of a new OEM in India trying to have almost 50% of women in the shop floor. Another extremely established OEM who's been there in India and is a market leader is also looking to kind of up the ante as far as employing women across the various functions. Of course, women have largely been even in manufacturing. They probably find them in marketing. You find them in finance. You find them in HR, but you don't find them. Of course, it's growing now. You don't find them in R&D, manufacturing, supply chain, etc. Would you want to talk about some initiatives where Continental has put several steps forward in terms of including women especially on the shop floor?
Sure. Thanks, Sanjay. I think sustainability expands beyond eco-friendly practices. I think one of the essential aspects of a sustainable ecosystem is equal opportunities to all. Yeah. However, as you rightly said, in the manufacturing sector, reducing the gender gap is most significant challenge. Yeah. Various studies indicate that only 3 to, if I'm not wrong, about 12% of the women in India are employed in the manufacturing sector, and many women fail to choose manufacturing as a career option due to the cultural bias or the awareness regarding potential career opportunities. I think manufacturing companies need policy changes to support diversity among employees. Yeah, instead of sort of placing don't get me wrong, if I say a quota system, provide special skill development courses to increase representation from different backgrounds, run workshops to sensitize these employees. So one of many such programs that we have at Continental is Women at Work. Through our Women at Work initiative, women earlier in their careers can connect with the senior executives and a global network of women for every area of the company. Additionally, we also established something called Software Academy, which aims at upskilling, reskilling our employees regardless of the gender. And also, Continental has taken decisive steps to increase the workforce diversity in leadership roles. We have launched various skilling programs, like, for example, in India, we lead Women's Excellence Leadership Program to increase the women's representation in the leadership role. We have a big target. Our target is 25% by 2025. What does it mean? 25% of our senior management will be women colleagues, female colleagues by 2025. So this is also with Continental aim, where Continental's aim or say to increase the proportion of women in the first two management levels across the organization. Apart from above steps, as a part of CSR to support Continental women, Continental, as recently we rolled out a program called Women for Manufacturing. It's a part of a CSR program. So we will be running an awareness campaign for the schoolgirls to educate them on how the manufacturing sector can be lucrative career option. So the campaign will be the primary step for creating a sort of a positive mindset shift for the women. So through various initiatives, campaigns, Continental aims to address real genuine concerns and issues highlighted by our schoolgirls. Yeah. So this is one program. Under this initiative, the company is also focusing on skill development of our ITI and engineering students. Yeah. So we are trying to strategize and evaluate various skill campaigns to enhance the overall skill levels of women force. This not only for our company per se, they are free to after this course. We are trying to make them employable. Yeah, we are trying to make them employable, and anybody can take them. So for that matter. So these are some of what we have.
Yeah, and then I think it's all the more reason while you as a leader and as a custodian of these efforts, while you could put in place and kind of ideate these kind of initiatives, I think one of the key areas what companies need to do, and I think you recognize this more than anyone else, that how do you sustain these efforts? I mean, you just can't say that, listen, we paint a blue sky strategy that we're going to do women for manufacturing, etc. But how do you go about making a 3, 5, 7, 10-year plan and achieve this 25% by 25? So you need people to support it. You need people to augment it to make these milestones happen. I guess.
Absolutely. So we started this journey 3 years back, or maybe even before that. Yeah, 3 years back. So the first is sensitizing men, I would say, honestly. Yeah, that was our first step. That was our first step. Yeah. Second is also driving a series of training programs to make people understand what these female colleagues bring into our system. So unfortunately, all of us have some amount of biases. So how do we ensure that biases are taken out? And so this was our first this thing. So it took almost 2 years for us to keep educating people, make them understand. Then there was a lot of buy-in from the people. That there are a lot of people. That made us our life a little bit more easier for us to then go to the next step of enhancing this percentage. And so far, I would say, while yes, certainly we can do much more. But what we have achieved over a period of time, I would say nearly about 32% of our total employees in India are female colleagues. Well, 32% may sound big, but still we have some challenge, especially in achieving this 25% in the senior management levels. So that's where we have worked, or we continue to work in terms of building this pipeline so that in the days to come, years to come, we have enough talent pool of people who would take these positions as and when it comes up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I read somewhere, and it's interesting that you have, I think your new CTO is again is a woman, is a woman leader. So
absolutely,
I think that passes a very clear message that women are transcending functions where they were male bastions, which include engineering, product development, R&D, engineering, etc. So I hope that kind of has a cascading effect down the line and towards even manufacturing as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to
For me, actually, Sanjay keeps talking about this. Uh, Diversity and inclusion are not affirmative action or equal opportunity action. Diversity can be mandated, but not the inclusion. So inclusion is a culture. A lot of inclusion has to rest with the top management of the company. Diversity is a fact and inclusion is a choice. Inclusion leads to diversity and not the other way around. So all our efforts, were towards making the workplace inclusive. We can have very diverse organization with zero inclusion and the organization will fail. So we have realized that, and that's why all our focus and activities work towards how do we make the company more inclusive. For us, the inclusion comes first, maybe even before the diversity, and diversity is will certainly follow.
Absolutely.
And if you are inclusive, you will automatically be diverse, and it's not the other way around.
And also, I want the message to spread across to everyone in the corporate sector or otherwise that diversity is not only gender, it can be race, sex, religion, ethnicity, color, even orientation. In fact, I've had a couple of discussions with clients where they have been pretty open, and I have been pretty open with them and asking them, listen, why don't you look at diversity from the orientation point of view? Why don't you be open for people from the LGBTQ side as well, and also I've encouraged a lot of clients to talk about capability of the mind. So your physical any disability, if I could use the word, or any inadequacy physically should not be the hurdle to hire the right kind of person going forward.
Absolutely.
So I want to kind of move away slightly from sustainability, and I know this is a question many of our audience would also have. How do you marry these sustainable goals? And these are continuing and continuous goals. I mean, you can't say I've achieved sustainability goal, etc. You need to kind of keep building on sustainability. At the same time, I have to mention the pandemic. I have to mention the 18 months of difficult time the corporate sector has faced, people have faced personally. How do you marry long-term sustainability goals vis-a-vis short-term business goals? I mean, you are answerable for the bottom line. You are answerable for top line. There is pressure on cost. Companies are conserving cash. So one is that aspect. And the second thing is sustainability also talks about automation. It talks about automation on the shop floor. It talks about moving people away from dealing with heavy lifting tasks. So you have robots in your warehouses. And I'm going to kind of pitch in and say the government, for example, is talking about increasing manufacturing share of the total GDP to 25%, up from maybe 15 or 16% here. So you have to marry everything together, achieve these kind of goals, because GDP will not go to 5 trillion without manufacturing growing to 25%, in my personal opinion. So how do you marry all this? Sustainability, short-term business targets and goals, increasing your manufacturing footprint, employing more people at the same time, automating in the shop floor. So I would want to kind of pick your thoughts on that, Prashanth.
Sure, Sanjay. I think if you ask me, sustainability for me means the holistic development of the entire ecosystem, be it the products in the portfolio, sustainable manufacturing, diversity, organizational safety, or even for that matter, giving back to community. Fortunately, it aligns perfectly with the Continental's global goals. Continental has 4 focus areas of sustainability, which I talked about at the start of this program. So I think first is the leadership mindset. I keep saying you need not be rich to be hygienic. For example, if you look at some of the countries in Southeast Asia, they are poor countries, Vietnam, Philippines, but they are much, much more cleaner than India. So it doesn't cost you. Number 2, that's a mindset. Number 2 is certainly How do we stay? Maybe we may have to suffer for a shorter term, for a better longer term. So having that vision, having that mission. So that's very, very important for a leader. And actually starts at the leadership level. Number three, again, when you talk about sustainability, again, it's not all about spending money to make it happen. Honestly, without money, you can do many things which can be achieved. While yes, some initiatives really require some amount of investments, but those are, I would say, very good investment. For example, if I have to talk about in our manufacturing processes, yeah, we started the journey of Industry 4.0 4 years back. At that point of time, yes, we had to make some amount of investments. What is Industry 4.0? For me, if I have to put it in a very simple way, it's gaining the visibility of the material flow in the system. So with data, you can do so many things. And again, I keep saying, in any company for that matter, every company has KPIs, a lot of KPIs, and the KPIs, what we review, it's all past. Based on the past data, we review, make some inference, and make an action plan. How do we ensure that we don't prevent that? Whereas the Industry 4.0, with the real-time data, even it doesn't allow this event to happen. Even before that, you can take an action, thereby avoiding a lot of losses. So this is the benefit of Industry 4.0. So through Industry 4.0, we have achieved enormous results, I would say, be it on the productivity, be it on the cost, be it on the employee morale in terms of ergonomics, yeah, be it on sustainability targets, because every time you reduce your cycle time, every time you reduce, you produce less scrap. This all boils down into cost and also the sustainability target. So one such certainly the drive which continues to help us is the Industry 4.0, what we have achieved in our plants. And the other next initiative which we took, which we mandated end of 2020, all our plants will be using only green power, even if it means that we have to buy at an extra cost. So these are immediate two steps, I would say, in a very systematic approach. We have taken this. Already we are starting to see huge results, starting to see huge results. And we have a lot of activities which are planned, which becomes the part of our strategic implementation plan, what we call as a ocean country. We have a ocean country matrix at the India level and also plant level. And many of these are related to this sustainability pillar.
Fantastic. That's good to note, Prashanth. So you're saying that Industrial 4.0 need not be only all about automation and technology. It can be, again, as you rightly used in an earlier point, it's all about inclusion. I mean, it need not be technology. It can be human development. It can be marrying many goals together as part of the overall umbrella of Industry 4.0.
Absolutely.
Got it. So coming to the end of the conversation, I just have a couple of questions. One is, of course, where Continental has its sustainability goals, but also you need to kind of embrace the overall human development index around you as well. You need to kind of improve the human development index in the ecosystem and the environment you operate. So we want to kind of talk about, without kind of, using this as a marketing, objective. How do you go about improving the lives of people around your manufacturing locations? For example, since I'm from Bangalore, I understand and I know the topography, let's say Bomasandra. So villages around Bomasandra, villages around Manesar here in Pune, any quick illustrations of how you develop the society and the environment around?
Oh, certainly. So I strongly believe when we run a company, we draw a lot of resources from the surrounding community. And I think it's our responsibility to, at the end of the day, to give back something back to the community. That's why all our CSR activities are focused in the communities where we operate, because that's the place where we draw a lot of resources. Yeah. And so one such is certainly in the Bangalore, near to the Bangalore in Anekal Taluk. We have a series of sustainable CSR activities which is underway. We are partnered with United Way. So if I have to list a couple of them, what we have done, certainly in the surrounding vicinity of all those villages near Anekal, we have tried to first start with covering them with the rainwater harvesting and teaching them how important it is to save every drop of water. So rainwater harvesting. So that's number one. Number two, and also from making people employable, we did a lot of initiatives in terms of making them, we don't give them jobs, but what we are trying to do is making them employable so that they can stand on their own with that skill set, they can go and get a job elsewhere. So that's number two. Number three, certainly, can you imagine these are villages which are just 5 kilometers away from a stream where Kaveri flows. And we all know Kaveri is how fertile it is. Unfortunately, these villages are completely dry. So we have taken that as an initiative in terms of how do we improve the groundwater. So we had a couple of projects last year improving the groundwater levels and also the tanks nearby so that that can be used for sustainable agriculture practices. The other one, which is currently underway, is building a sort of a check dam and also diverting a canal from the stream towards these villages so that all these villages become enough water sufficient and also used for irrigation purpose. So these are some of the things what we are driving, mainly focused on the sustainability, keeping in mind the sustainable practices.
Excellent. It's great to know, and I kind of continue to wish you all the best on that front. Now, my last question is something which is extremely important. Not only looking at fulfilling your sustainability goals and also inculcating the very thought of sustainability in people going forward. So would you down the line, I know now it's not the practice, especially in the hiring process, whether it's hiring at the entry level, mid level, or where we operate at the very top level in retail executive search, would you see a kind of a thought process or a movement where you would also look to not question but understand the quotient levels, if I could use the word, of leaders coming on who are interested to join Continental, irrespective of their background, but how close are sustainability goals to their heart, not only from the emotional point of view, but also is there any experience from their side to have done that? Or would you kind of, all skills and attributes being equal, you would probably say, hey, this lady has got that much more knowledge about how to arrive at certain sustainability objectives, so he or she is going to win the battle with all things being equal. So would sustainability be a differentiator in your hiring process down the line?
Thanks, Sanjay, for asking this very pertinent question. So if you look at the way Continental is shaping the sustainability roadmap for the organization, I think every stakeholder is an integral part of sustainability strategy. That's what we are kept in mind. So which means senior executives, I'd say at Continental already have sustainability targets to meet. And can you imagine in our company, our long-term incentives are based on sustainability goals and not on profitability goals. And this target further spread out into small portion at each stage until last member of the organization. So having said that, strong credentials in the area of sustainability will play a huge role for personal growth within the organization. And also, I think it will be an added advantage for those who wish to work for the organization. In short, in the coming future, a good experience and an accomplishment in the I would say will have a significant weightage in our recruiting decisions.
Well, this is very heartening to note, and it's very enlightening as well. I think from my side, personally, for me, this has been a very enlightening conversation, Prashanth. And on behalf of Kingsley Gate Partners, I wish you and your team the very best in terms of continuously achieving your moving sustainability targets. And I hope you're going to achieve all your milestones absolutely with success. And my personal best wishes to you as a leader, continuing your goals as far as sustainability is concerned, and looking forward to be in touch with you. And thank you very much for this time spent with us. It's been great to have you on In the Spotlight with Kingsley Gate Partners.
No, thank you, Sanjay. Truly enjoy talking to you and truly appreciate having me on this show. Thank you so much.